Charmed is a supernatural drama that follows the lives of three sisters who find out they are witches known as the Charmed Ones, whose job is to protect the world from evil. The show ran from 1998 to 2006 and was hugely popular and has gone on to become a cult classic. And it was also pioneering as it was one of the only few major TV shows to have a female-led cast. However, over the years there has been a lot of reports and speculation that there was a toxic work environment on set and that the main stars of the show had many feuds, including rumours that one of the cast members got fired. And the drama recently resurfaced when the stars of the show spoke out about what really happened behind the scenes and revealed a lot of information that had never been said before. So in this video I'm going to go through all of the drama that has happened over the years with the cast of Charmed and what their relationship is like today. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Problems from the start. So, Charmed debuted in 1998, and the three main cast members were Shannen Doherty as Prue, Holly Marie Combs as Piper, and Alyssa Milano as Phoebe. All three of the actresses were quite well known already, as they had all worked on previous projects. However, Shannen was perhaps the best known because she had played the role of Brenda Walsh on the popular show 90210 during the 90s. But Shannen had developed somewhat of a bad reputation from her time working on 90210, and she reportedly had a big feud with her co-star Jenny Garth. Both actresses have since confirmed that there was indeed a feud, and although they have since made up, the feud was part of the reason why Shannen left the show, and there were even rumours that Shannen had been fired. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly after Shannen left 90210 in 1994, Shannen said that she was, quote, unhappy while working on the show, and that was part of the reason why she left. And she also clarified that she was not fired, but left of her own choice. But because Shannen left 90210 under somewhat of a cloud, she was often labelled as, quote, difficult to work with within the industry. However, Aaron Spelling, who worked as a producer on 90210, then hired Shannen to work on a new show he was working on, which was Charmed in 1998. And in fact, Shannen said that she was a bit hesitant at first to work with Aaron Spelling and the production company again because she had been, quote, burned by them back on 90210. And Shannen admitted that she probably still harboured some anger and resentment towards them. But Shannen was eventually hired to be on Charmed and the show became a huge hit. And at first, all of the three main actresses on Charmed seemed to get on very well. And in fact, Shannen and Holly served as bridesmaids at Alyssa's wedding to her first husband in 1999. But the cracks in their relationship soon started to appear. For example, Shannen apparently was always put in the middle of the promo photos for the show, and Alyssa was reportedly not happy about it because she felt like Shannen was being made the star of the show even though all three of them should be the lead stars. So apparently Alyssa insisted that she should be in the middle of the photos instead of Shannen. And although this was never confirmed, many years later Shannen did say on her podcast that there was a, quote, competitiveness between her and Alyssa, and this was because the show was originally sold with Shannen being the lead and she was the first one cast, and apparently Alyssa had issues with Shannen supposedly being the star. Another example came during the filming of the first season of Charmed, when Holly had to have major surgery for a uterine tumour. Production shut down for several weeks, and Holly said that all of the cast and crew rallied behind her and supported her. And she said that both Shannen and Alyssa came to visit her in hospital, and Alyssa's mother even made Holly chicken soup to have in hospital. However, years later, Shannen revealed on her podcast Let's Be Clear that Alyssa and her mother apparently tried to block Shannen from visiting Holly in hospital.
Alyssa and her mom, like they were blocking people from seeing you, and at the time you didn't know. And I remember you texted me and were like, dude, are you gonna come to see me? And I could feel like your pain of feeling like I'd abandoned you.
And Shannen said that this then created a, quote, weird divide between the actresses, and that affected them for the rest of their time on the show. And Shannen said that she cried every single night during production of season 2. And this then started the beginning of the end for Shannen on the show. Was Shannen fired? One of the biggest shocks that happened on Charmed was when Shannen left the show at the end of season 3 and her character, Prue, was killed off. And actress Rose McGowan was later brought in as a new sister named Paige for the rest of the show's run. At the time, fans were shocked and confused that the character of Prue had died, especially given the fact that the show is about witches who often get brought back to life using their magical powers. And this then led to a lot of speculation about whether Shannen had been fired. The situation then intensified even more when Shannen said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly in 2001 that she left the show because, quote, there was too much drama on the set and not enough passion for the work. And there have been rumours circulating for years that Shannen and Alyssa did not get on, and so it seemed that Shannen was perhaps confirming that that was true. There were also rumours that Shannen was difficult to work with on set, and there was even some leaked footage which appeared to show Shannen shouting at members of the crew to be quiet.
Okay, so do you guys not realize that we're actually rolling? Be quiet. Alright, so what's it?
However, this characterisation seems somewhat at odds with what actor Brian Krause, who played Leo, once said in an interview. Brian was asked in a 2004 interview with Pedestrian, what is the biggest myth about Charmed? And Brian said, quote, that Shannen Doherty was a pain in the ass and a horrible person. I can just tell you that she was the hardest working person on the set. Yes, she could be terse and abrupt, but she wasn't always wrong, I'll tell you that. I have nothing but love for Shannen. The other element of this is that Shannen and Holly had been very good friends for many years before Charmed, and they continue to be very close to this day. And so it was speculated that perhaps Alyssa felt like she was not being included. In fact, when Shannen left the show in season 3, she even clarified in an interview that she had no issues with Holly and that she was really sad to leave Holly behind. And Shannen even said that Holly wasn't sure if she wanted to be on the show anymore without Shannen. But the network quickly clarified that Holly was still under contract and was not going anywhere. And many years later in 2023, Holly revealed on Shannen's podcast that she told producer Jonathan Levin that she didn't want to be on the show without Shannen. But Jonathan apparently, quote, blackmailed Holly and threatened to sue her if she left the show, which is why Holly remained on Charmed. However, the question about whether Shannen was fired or whether she left the show had been rumoured for years, and there never seemed to be a straight answer about it. One rumour that circulated for years was that because Shannen and Alyssa did not get on and there was such animosity between the two of them on set, allegedly both of them separately went to the producers and gave them an ultimatum and said that they needed to choose between either Shannen or Alyssa, and either way one of them would be leaving the show. And for years both Shannen and Alyssa denied that that was true. However, in 2015, actor Jason Priestley, who co-starred with Shannen on 90210, released his memoir. And in the memoir, there was a passage where Jason said that he had once had a conversation with Shannen while she was still on Charmed, and Shannen had complained about working with Alyssa. And Shannen apparently said that she was planning to give an ultimatum to Aaron Spelling and make him choose between her or Alyssa. Jason allegedly tried to talk Shannen out of it, but then by the end of season 3, Shannen had left the show. And this excerpt from Jason's memoir resurfaced recently, and many people were using it as proof to suggest that Shannen was the one who gave the ultimatum. But at this point in time, no more information had been confirmed. Alyssa Milano was once asked about this though, on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen in 2013. And Alyssa was asked if Shannen got fired, and Alyssa said, quote, we never really found out what happened. And Alyssa went on to say that they were told that Shannen had decided to leave the show of her own accord. But Alyssa did say that there were, quote, definitely some rough days on set, which many people took as confirmation that Alyssa and Shannen did not get on. And recently, even more information has come out about this, and the truth has perhaps finally been revealed about what really happened. Stay tuned because I'll be talking about that part later in the video. Feuds between the castmates. After Charmed ended in 2006, it was pretty common knowledge that the main actresses of the show had had several feuds with each other over the years, and lots of ups and downs as well as accusations of a toxic workplace environment. So I'll go through some of these feuds now because they're relevant to the story later on. We already know that Alyssa and Shannen did not get on, and this had been quite widely publicised at this time. However, another dynamic to this feud, which I mentioned earlier, was brought up by Alyssa Milano, which is that she felt that Shannen and Holly were cliquey and didn't include her because they were already friends. For example, in Alyssa's appearance on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen in 2013 that I mentioned earlier, Alyssa explained that Shannen and Holly had been best friends for 10 years before Charmed started. And Alyssa described being on set as, quote, "It was very much sort of like high school. I would hope that in our 30s it wouldn't feel like that anymore." And so many people took that to mean that Alyssa was saying that Shannen and Holly ganged up on her. However, shortly after Alyssa said this, both Shannen and Holly fired back. Holly took to Twitter and said, quote, "Working on Charmed was nothing like high school. I went to high school. It was a very important job to me and always will be." And Shannen added, quote, "Yeah, agreed, considering it helped me support my family and pay for my dad's medical issues, but everyone has their opinion and views." Shannen and Holly then starred together again in 2015 on a travel show called WhatTheMatt. And during a radio interview to promote the show, they were asked about Alyssa's previous comments about the set of Charmed feeling like high school.
Is there any truth to that? Do you understand her perspective?
I mean, are there times that were rough? Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you work that closely together, there's always going to be times that are rough. Sometimes you don't always get along with the person 24/7 that you work with.
She didn't go to high school. What are we talking about here?
A few years later in 2017, Shannen revealed that she had breast cancer and had been diagnosed back in 2015. And she had been receiving treatment for it and the cancer had gone into remission. This then seemed to lead to Alyssa and Shannen having some kind of reconciliation, and Alyssa said that what happened 15 years ago was, quote, "irrelevant," and she sent love and support to Shannen. However, 2 years later in 2019, Shannen revealed that the cancer had returned and had spread, and later in 2023, it was revealed that the cancer had spread to Shannen's brain, and it was now stage 4 cancer, which was terminal. However, Shannen said that she remains positive and she, quote, "doesn't want to die." However, in the midst of this happening, there was also some drama developing between Alyssa and Rose McGowan, who later played Paige on Charmed. Rose had largely stayed quiet over the years about the drama on the set of Charmed and hadn't ever really said anything bad about her co-stars. However, in 2017, during the Me Too movement, Alyssa had defended Harvey Weinstein's ex-wife, Georgia Chapman, who she's friends with. And Alyssa said that Georgia had no idea about the abuse that Harvey had been doing, and Alyssa said that Georgia was a, quote, "good person." And in the same interview, Alyssa was asked about Rose because Rose was one of the people who started the Me Too movement, and she was one of the first people to speak out against Harvey Weinstein, and she later sued Harvey for sexual assault. However, when Rose heard that Alyssa had made comments about Harvey's ex-wife being a, quote, "good person," Rose called Alyssa out. Rose had previously stated that she felt that Georgia was complicit in Harvey's crimes and that she must have known about it. And so, when Alyssa supported Georgia, Rose tweeted at Alyssa and said, quote, "You make me want to vomit. You actually gave me a body flashback. Well done, fake one." Later in 2018, during an interview that Rose did with Nightline, the host said that Alyssa had been credited with helping the Me Too movement go viral, and they asked what Rose thought about Alyssa.
I don't like her.
Why?
Because I think she's a lie.
Rose went on to say that Alyssa is married to a CAA agent. And for those of you who don't know, CAA is a talent agency that represents many actors and other performers. And CAA has been accused of enabling Harvey Weinstein's crimes over the years. And for example, actress Julia Ormond sued CAA in 2023 and said that Harvey Weinstein had assaulted her back in 1995. And Julia had apparently told her agents about it at the time, and they worked for CAA, and they apparently did nothing because they wanted to protect Harvey because he made a lot of money for them. And so, going back to Rose McGowan, she said that Alyssa is married to a CAA agent, and she said that CAA is, quote, part of the pimp problem.
I'm not looking at this from the outside. I have a lot of experience. I know she's married to a CIA agent. Do the math. Who's behind Time's Up? CIA. Where do they meet? CIA. Who needs good PR? CIA. Who are part of the pimp problem? CIA.
A few years later in 2020, Alyssa tweeted and criticised Rose for some comments that Rose had made about Democrats and accused Rose of spreading lies. In response, Rose tweeted several things, and among them she said that Alyssa, quote, stole the Me Too movement and co-opted it. Rose also said that Alyssa made $250,000 per week on Charmed. Rose also accused Alyssa of bad behaviour on the set of Charmed and said, quote, you threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling, they don't pay me enough for this bleep. Appalling behaviour on the daily. I cried every time we got renewed because you made that set toxic AF. Now get off my coattails, you effing fraud. Then, in 2021, Rose appeared on the Katie Helper podcast, where she said that working with Alyssa on Charmed was really difficult, and she even said that Alyssa is a, quote, sociopath and lacks empathy.
Working with Alyssa Milano, it was just like, come on, you don't have to be a dick. And it's just embarrassing. There is an obtuseness. I'm going to get a lot of for saying this, but somewhere on the sociopath scale. For sure.
Later in 2021, Alyssa released her memoir called Sorry Not Sorry, and there was one chapter of the book dedicated to Rose. And in the chapter, there was a passage that said, quote, there was once a rose in my life that I loved particularly strongly. Roses used to be my favourite flower, but I no longer grow them. I've been pricked too many times. And when Alyssa was asked about this, Alyssa said she wanted to include this in the book because Rose had been, quote, unkind to her and her family, and she wanted to address the situation with kindness, which is why she didn't go into any further detail. And so from this, it was clear that Alyssa and Rose had fallen out and did not seem to have any kind of relationship anymore. After all of this happened, people started to say that perhaps Alyssa was the problem all along because she had had feuds with all of her co-stars. And they theorised that perhaps Shannen had been telling the truth all those years before, although this was all just speculation. However, the real bombshell revelations and accusations happened very recently when all of this drama came to a head, which we'll talk about now. The truth finally comes out. So, as we've heard so far in this video, the drama between the cast members of Charmed had been going on for decades, and it was clear that there had been a very toxic work environment and that many members of the cast did not really get on. However, there were still many questions that had been left unanswered for many years, mainly around whether Alyssa had orchestrated Shannen getting fired all those years before. And all of this drama started back up in 2023 when on Shannen's podcast called Let's Be Clear, Shannen and Holly discussed the topic of Shannen's exit from Charmed, and they claimed that Alyssa got Shannen fired. Holly said that at the time, she had had a meeting with producer Jonathan Levin where they discussed what really happened and why Shannen left the show. And in a nutshell, Alyssa had apparently told the producers that they had to choose between her or Shannen.
And why would you hire her again just to fire her? And he said, we didn't mean to. And he said, but we've been backed into this corner. He said, you know, we're basically in a position where it's one or the other. We were told that it's her or me, and Alyssa has threatened to sue us for a hostile workplace environment.
The drama then ramped up even more in February 2024 when all 4 actresses attended MegaCon in Orlando, Florida. However, they did not all appear together and Alyssa chose to do a panel on her own. In the panel, Alyssa referred to what Shannen and Holly had recently said on the podcast and said that she was going to, quote, address the elephant in the room. Alyssa went on to say that she wants to be thoughtful about what she says because she doesn't want to hurt the fans any more than they've already been hurt. But Alyssa said that she wishes they could all move on.
I'm the most sad for the fans that a show has been tarnished by a toxicity that is still, to this day, almost a quarter of a century later. I understand that hurt people hurt people.
She also said that she feels as though she has apologised in the past for any role that she played in the drama, and she doesn't know how to fix the situation any more than she has already tried to. The next day, Alyssa posted more about this subject on Instagram, and she posted a full transcript of everything that she had said during her panel at MegaCon. But Alyssa also added some additional information in the post. I won't read the whole statement because it's quite long, but Alyssa started off by saying, quote, "I don't know one other show that has had the same success that Charmed had, where the cast still speaks ill of the experience a quarter of a century later." She then said it's been so long since all of that happened that, quote, "any retelling of these stories from anyone is just revisionist history." And just in case you don't know, the term revisionist history is used broadly to describe when people deliberately change facts about history or things that happened in the past, usually to try and make themselves look better or more innocent than they actually were. Or, in other words, trying to change history to suit a particular narrative. Anyway, Alyssa also revealed in her Instagram statement that back when they were filming Charmed, a professional mediator had to be hired to mediate between the three actresses because they weren't getting on. And Alyssa was told that Holly and Shannen had refused to participate in any kind of mediation. And in addition to that, a producer/babysitter were brought in to investigate all of the claims that had been made against the actresses, and the decision was made to protect the show. Alyssa finished by saying, quote, "I did not have the power to get anyone fired." The next day at MegaCon, which was 2 days after Alyssa had been there, Shannen, Holly and Rose all appeared together in a panel. Shannen said that she wanted to address the drama that had happened and that she had prepared a statement that she wanted to read out. Shannen said that at this point in her life, with her health struggles, it's important to her that her truth is actually told, not just the narratives that other people put out there. She then said that there is, quote, "no revisionist history being told," which was clearly a reference to what Alyssa had said a day before in her Instagram post. Shannen said that she and Holly did not say what they said on the podcast in order to start drama, and in fact they had edited out a lot of it because they didn't want to cause any more upset for the fans. But Shannen wants the truth to be known, and she denied several of the claims that Alyssa had made.
"There is no brush flinging or shoe flinging. There is no lateness to set. There is no mediator for months on end. I recall the facts as if I were still living in them."
Shannen went on to say that she is still healing from the trauma that she received during her time on Charmed and, quote, "the livelihood that was taken away from me because someone wanted to be number one on the call sheet." And Rose supported Shannen and followed this up by saying that they had tried to protect the fans from this drama for as long as they could, but they could no longer go on. And Rose finished by saying, quote, "winners do not let losers rewrite history." The next day, Holly then posted a lengthy statement on Instagram addressing some of the comments that Alyssa had made in her Instagram post. Holly said, quote, "I feel the need to defend myself after the many continuing attacks that have ensued since Alyssa stepped out on the stage and essentially called Shannen and I liars. Suffice to say, I'm a little shocked and a little disappointed, especially by the things she posted the next day while texting me simultaneously words to the contrary. Sadly, that's not surprising anymore." Holly also referenced what Alyssa had said in her post about not having the power to get anyone fired. And Holly said, quote, "this was actually all about power. But let's go with that and let me explain what she did have the power to do. She had the power to stop the process at any time." Holly then went on to say that in regard to the mediator on set, she refused to speak to the mediator because she didn't want to go to work and talk about her feelings with a person who was clearly only brought on to protect the company's profits. And Holly also said that to her knowledge, no other cast members were interviewed apart from Holly herself. But Holly said that there was a case being built up against Shannen and that it was, quote, "a case that Alyssa and Alyssa alone had the power to stop." And according to Holly, when the producers said that they were going to let Shannen go, Alyssa could have said no, but she didn't. But ultimately, Holly placed the blame on the producers for what happened and said that they kept the actresses divided in order to protect their profits because, quote, "3 broken pieces were easier to control and manipulate than one united front." And as you can imagine, after all of this happened, many fans took to social media to talk about this. Many fans also pointed out multiple discrepancies in the stories that the actresses had been saying. For example, on Shannon's podcast, she and Holly said that there were, quote, no on-set brawls or fights, and that it was always things that were just said inside of trailers and no one ever heard any of it because it was never in front of anyone. However, on the podcast Talk Scary to Me, actress Scout Taylor Compton said that she had appeared on Charmed when she was a child, and she played the role of Thistle, Fairy Queen, as well as several other fairies throughout the run of the show. And on the podcast, Scout said that even though she was a child, she saw that the actresses were, quote, always fighting on set and in the makeup trailer, which doesn't really match up with what Shannon had said, that the fights were always in private. And the other co-host on the podcast, Danielle Harris, also appeared on Charmed as Aviva, the fourth sister. And Danielle said that Shannon was not very nice to her on set and kept staring daggers at her the whole time. And Danielle even said that if they had offered her $100,000 per episode to be on Charmed as a series regular, she wasn't sure if she would have accepted it because she, quote, felt sick every day that she was on set. And these claims about a toxic work environment were also backed up by actor Armin Shimmerman, who played the role of a wizard in the 4th season, which was after Shannon had left. And during a panel at DragonCon in 2010, Armin said that he, quote, hated the ladies on Charmed and implied that they were divas. And he said, quote, there was a reason why they were cast as witches. But in general, it seems that there is potentially blame on all sides, and we'll never truly know exactly what happened, as there seems to be a lot of conflicting information. And at this point, the drama happened so long ago. But we'll have to wait and see if any further developments ever come out about this in the future to offer any further information. So there you go, there was a video explaining all of the drama and feuds involving the cast of Charmed, and why some of the cast members appear to have fallen out. What do you think about all of this drama? And would you ever want to see Charmed come back in the future with the original cast? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as exclusive content, you can become a member of my Patreon and you'll unlock these amazing benefits, and I'll put a link in the description. Please make sure you like, comment and share this video as it really helps support my channel. And of course, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!